Hi there, my name's Khris Amerikos, and in this video I'm going to tell you how to start a conversation in English. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this, and in this video I'm going to show you examples, and I'm even going to show you how you can practice using these ways of starting conversations with native speakers and other people who are learning English around the world. So let's jump right into this video. Come on. Sometimes when we want to start a conversation with a person who we don't know, or maybe a group of people who we don't know, we want to say something that's going to make everyone feel less stressed, right? That will make them feel more comfortable. And we call this breaking the ice. So there are some special phrases that we might use in English that help us break the ice. And these special phrases are called icebreakers. And let's look at a few icebreakers right now. An icebreaker might be something like, hey, how's it going? Or what's up? But let's look at all of these different ways to start a conversation in English in different categories, right? There's different situations, and some situations call for different icebreakers or different phrases. Now, other than icebreakers, there are some general conversation starters that we can use just to get things going, to get everything moving forward, right? Because sometimes you see a person and you don't know what to talk to them about. You don't know what they will be comfortable with. So there are some standard conversation starters that I'm going to show you right now. It's usually a good idea to begin a conversation with the basics, like, what's your name? Or where are you from? Or you could initiate a conversation by introducing yourself. Hi, I'm Khris Amerikos. What's your name? Or, I'm Khris from the United States. Where are you from? Or you could open up a conversation by talking about something that's happening at the time or in the place where the meeting is taking place. So maybe the music is really loud and I can say, the music is too loud in here. Hi, I'm Khris. What's your name? Right? So we're using this situation to start the conversation. Or who are our mutual acquaintances, right? Those are people who we both know. We call them mutual acquaintances. Or you could kick off a conversation by giving the person a compliment. That's a great jacket. Where did you get it? I'm Khris, by the way. Or, your English is great. Hi, I'm Khris. What's your name? Or you could begin a conversation by asking a question like, what do you do for a living? Right? This means, what is your job? How do you make money? We say, what do you do for a living? Or we could ask, where are you from originally? We ask this question when we know that the person is not from here. So maybe you know that the person is not from your country and they speak your language very well, and maybe you can say, where are you from originally? Like, I understand that you probably live here, but you came from a different place before. All right, so we've talked about a lot of different phrases, but let's back up, and let's talk about greeting words. These are words that we can use to get conversations started too. And sometimes we don't have to use a whole phrase. We can just use one word, and it's a greeting, right? Every language has this, and many people start conversations just like this. Some of these words are, hey, hi, yo. That one's really informal. Or sup. That's a short form of the question, what's up? Which is just a greeting. Or we might say, howdy. It's very American. Or hello. That's more formal. Or g'day. That's more Australian. All right, some of those greetings are more formal than others. And that's why it's really important to understand the difference between formal greetings and informal greetings. In most situations with people, you're going to use informal greetings because probably you're practicing your English in an informal situation. However, if you find yourself in a formal situation, you should use formal ways to start conversations. But right now, let's look at the informal ways that we can get things rolling. When we're speaking informally, we can say things like, how's it going? Or what's going on? What's up? And also we can use some slang phrases like, what's poppin'? Or what's crackin'? Or maybe, what's new? Or what's good? Also, there's more typical informal greetings like, "How are you doing?" and "How are things?" So one of the problems that a lot of my students have, and the students who have studied with me around the world, I mean thousands of students who have joined my lessons, they've told me that they have trouble starting conversations with people who they don't know at all. And it's not really about starting the conversation, it's about continuing the conversation and, making it move forward and making it longer. Because if you just say a few words, you're not really making a connection with this person. So there are a few things that we can do to continue the conversation. First of all, we could add details, we could ask questions, and we could ask for opinions. And this will lead us to more of a discussion, which will be really good for keeping the conversation going. When you're speaking with people who you don't know, impersonal questions are the best way to initiate a conversation. We can connect our questions to events that are happening around us. Like, do you mind if I sit here? Right? Maybe you see that there's an open chair or an open seat next to the person, and you can ask, do you mind if I sit here? This is a good way to, first of all, make sure that the person will not be uncomfortable when you sit there, but also it's a good way to initiate a conversation. We might say, "I really like your shoes. Where did you get them?" Or maybe a more useful question, "Excuse me, do you know what time it is?" Or maybe, "Could you tell me when this shop closes?" After we start by asking some questions, we can also add details to make the conversation keep going. This means that we need to add details about the topic that we're already speaking about, and maybe we want to speak about different parts or aspects of that topic. So maybe we're talking about watching a film, and we can say, "Did you enjoy it? Did you like it?" We might say, "The reason I'm asking is because I've been thinking about watching that film, and I just wanted to know if it's good or not." And hopefully this person will tell us their opinion, right? And we'll get more details. We might be talking about going to a restaurant, and we can say, "That restaurant that you're talking about, is it near here? I've been looking for a good Thai restaurant around here, so thanks for recommending that." So if the person adds more details, we can thank them for these details. We can say, "Thanks for your suggestion." Or we could say, "I appreciate you telling me about that." If you want to have a long conversation, then you'll probably want to get to know the person you're speaking with better. This means you learn more about them. When we learn more about someone or something, we can say that we get to know it or get to know it better. To keep the conversation going, you'll want to ask some general questions and try to find topics of common interest. For example, do you come to these places a lot? Right? Maybe we meet a person in a cafe and we say, "Do you come to cafes a lot?" It's a good way to start. Or maybe, "What made you come here today?" Or, "What are you doing here today? Do you always come here on Wednesdays?" for example. We might ask them about their job and say, "What line of work are you in?" A line of work, it just means an industry or a type of work. And we might also just ask about if they're local. We might say, "Are you from around here?" Now, when we've found a conversation topic that both people are comfortable speaking about, we can take the conversation deeper by switching topics. So maybe they tell us some information, and then instead of them telling all the details, now we share information too, and we share our details about us. So we might say, "You have a brother? What a coincidence! I have a brother too." Or, "I love dogs. How many dogs do you have?" Or, "No way! I used to live in Boston too." Another way to engage someone in a deep conversation is by asking for their opinion. Everyone's got an opinion, and most people like sharing theirs. So here's how you can do that. You can say, "Have you had any luck with this website?" Like, for example, let's say that you join my English Everyday program where you can practice speaking 24/7 and it's really cheap, and you want to talk to another person there who has been studying for 2 or 3 months with us, right? You can say, "Have you had any luck with this website?" It means, what's your experience with this website? Another question we might ask is, do you think it's okay that I'm getting a call from this number? Right? In this situation, probably the person is with us and we show them the number and they say, yes, it's okay to answer that, or no. And maybe we don't know and we want to ask the other person's opinion. We can say, I'm not sure. What do you think about this? That's another good way to ask for their opinion. In the beginning of a conversation, it's really interesting to talk to a new person. But after some time, that feeling goes away. So that's when you'll want to mention something that's closely connected to the topic that you've already been discussing. So you might do it like this. You might say, speaking of great films, have you seen this film? And then you can recommend your film. You can say what you like. Or we might say, that's right. You know what else happened that day? And we might give more information, right? Maybe they added some information, and now we want to show them that something else is connected to this topic that they were speaking about. Or my favorite one is, oh, that reminds me. You can just say this phrase right before you say something that's connected to the topic. They might say, I was taking my dog for a walk yesterday and my dog chased the mailman. And I might say, oh, that reminds me. I didn't get mail from the mailman for the last 5 days. And so you see, it's not really about the dog anymore. Now it's about my situation. And I just used this phrase to change directions. And I can just say, oh, that reminds me. And then say what I wanted to say, right? Now, when you've been speaking with someone for a while, it's a polite gesture to check and make sure that they want to continue. You don't want to just keep talking and talking and talking, and maybe they're not interested, right? So it's a good idea to get confirmation from them and be sure that they're not just being polite by listening to you. Here's what I like to say. I like to tell them, let me know if you need to go. I don't want to keep you from anything. Now, this is quite polite if we say it once and the person just says, oh, no, you're not keeping me, go on. Or I might say, I haven't caught you at a bad time, have I? Is it okay for you to talk? Or maybe, you're probably in the middle of something right now. Do you have time to chat? So we're just checking that we're not wasting their time, that they're actually interested. One of the most important parts of having a good conversation with someone is knowing when to shut up and stop talking. The best way to transition out of a conversation is by talking about future plans. You might do this by saying, hey, feel free to get in touch with me if you're ever in town again. Right? This way you're opening up to the next step of the relationship and the next time that you're going to have communication with this person. You might say, I've really enjoyed our chat today. Thank you so much. Or you might say, if you want to chat again, I'm usually in this cafe on Fridays. Right? So instead of contacting each other, we'll just show up. Or we might just say that it was nice to meet them. And we might say something to tell them that the conversation is finished, right? Like, it was great meeting you today. I'll see you next time. Or I'll see you around. When we say I'll see you around, it means I will see you somewhere, sometime. We're not going to plan it, but I'm sure that I will see you again. Now, one type of conversation starter that we have to really be careful with is imperatives. These are commands. It's when we tell somebody to do something. And in some languages, this doesn't sound very rude, or maybe it's just the way that people speak. But in English, when we use commands and when we use the imperative form of the verb, it can sound rude because we're using direct language instead of indirect language. Let me give you some examples. Now, if you don't know what imperatives are commands. They're the form of the verb that we should use when we give orders or we give instructions. In many situations, they sound very direct, they can sound forceful and even rude, and that's why we have to be careful when we're using them. But here are a few that we might use to get the conversation started. We might say, talk about something. Now, I personally don't like it when someone says this to me because I wasn't planning to speak about something, right? If I had something to speak about, I would tell you. But I've heard other people say this to me many times. Another thing that people might say is, tell me something interesting. Or, tell me your story. Or, tell me about yourself. So when we do this, when we use an imperative and we command another person to start speaking, it can feel a little uncomfortable for them because it's so direct. All right, next, let's talk a little bit about what you can say to start a conversation with your colleagues or your coworkers. Hi, Mike. How's it going? How are you doing? I'm having a really slow day today. How about you? When we say that we're having a slow day, it means that we don't have a lot of work or we're not completing a lot of tasks. Another important situation to understand is when you start a conversation with a person that you haven't seen for a long time. It's been a very long time, and maybe you haven't spoken in quite a while, and now you want to initiate the conversation. So how do you do that? Hey Mike, how have you been? What have you been up to lately? We haven't spoken in ages. Are you still working at Dunkin' Donuts? Long time no see. This is probably one of my favorites, and I use it a lot when I meet someone who I haven't seen in a while. I say, long time no see. It means I haven't seen you in a long time. Or we might ask, where have you been? Another situation that a lot of my students have asked me about is starting a conversation with a foreigner. And usually that means it's an English-speaking person who is visiting their country. But sometimes it's about visiting another country and starting a conversation with someone there. Here are some tips when you're speaking with a foreigner. You should be honest. Don't just say things to agree with them or because you think that they're going to like hearing it. You should imagine what your own reaction would be if someone asked you the same question, because sometimes when we speak with foreigners, we feel like we're speaking with a different species, a different type of person. But really, they're the same as us, so we should think about how we might feel if someone asked us that question, right? If you don't know how to answer that question yourself, then you probably shouldn't ask someone else. You should avoid yes or no questions. Instead of asking something like, do you like pizza? You can ask, what kind of food do you like? And now they need to explain this to you. Most importantly, you should be friendly. People like meeting other friendly people, even if they aren't friendly themselves. It's funny but true. And being friendly helps everyone relax and feel comfortable. One thing that I've seen a lot of is more and more conversations talk about technology. And there are a lot of discussions about technology because today we use a lot of technological things in our lives. So how do you start a conversation about technology topics? Which devices do you use every day without exception? What was the best invention to come about in the last decade? Does technology improve our lives or complicate them? That's a very philosophical question, right? Will technology become more intelligent than humans? Which new technology are you most excited about right now? Okay, one of my favorite situations is like the TV show Friends. If you've never seen it, it's about a group of people who are friends and they meet at a cafe and they talk about all kinds of different things that are happening in their lives. And a lot of my students have asked me, how do I start a conversation in a cafe or a restaurant or a bar? So let's look at a few ways that we can do that. I really need a coffee. How was your day? Do you know if the buffalo sandwich is good here? What's your favorite thing to order here? I'm not sure what to order to drink. What would you recommend? Enjoy your pasta. Have a good meal. Another big topic that you should know about is starting a conversation about traveling. When you're traveling to another place, a lot of people want to talk to you and ask you about your experience with traveling, and maybe they're just interested in knowing about your journey. So how can we start a conversation about traveling and continue it? Do you prefer traveling alone or in a group? Do you usually use a tour agent or book things yourself? What's the longest flight you've ever been on? Where do you plan to travel to next? Is there a place you recommend visiting? What's your favorite aspect of traveling? What? I can't hear you. What? How do you start a conversation at a concert with live music when it's super loud and you can't hear anything? Here's some examples. There are a lot of people here. Have you ever been here before? What's your favorite song by this group? How often do you go to live shows? Do you play music or just listen? Do you sing? Okay, a lot of people have conversations on the phone. So how do you start conversations about using the phone or on the phone? There's a lot of situations when we need to know this, but unfortunately a lot of people don't know these phrases. So let's look at them now. How often do you check your phone? What do you think phones will be like 10 years from now? How often do you buy a new phone? How does it make you feel when you're away from your phone for a long time? What do you wish that your phone could do that it doesn't do now? I don't know about you, but I love listening to music. And sometimes I want to start a conversation with someone about music. Here's how I do that. What's your favorite song? Who's your favorite singer? Do you like classical music? How do you find new songs and new music? Is there a specific song that you always listen to when you're sad? What's your favorite genre of music? Okay, imagine the next situation. You're traveling to a foreign country and you're sitting at the airport waiting to take off, or maybe you're coming back from a vacation and someone looks interesting, or someone starts a conversation with you, or someone seems like a person who you might be friends with, and you start a conversation. You want to strike up a nice little chat. How do you do that? At the airport. Where are you flying today? Can you recommend any good restaurants in this airport? Are you flying home or somewhere else? Are you traveling for business or pleasure? This is a question that people ask a lot. Pleasure means that you're on vacation, you're enjoying yourself, and business means that it's a business trip. There's a business reason for your travel. Is there anywhere to charge a phone nearby? Do you know what time we'll board the plane? Now, sometimes when you're at a shop looking for new clothes, someone else might also be looking at the same things, and maybe they're wearing something very stylish, and you want to start a conversation with them and see where it goes. Here's how you can do that. What's the most embarrassing piece of clothing you own? How do you think clothes change the way that people perceive us? Do you think it's important to dress up when you go out in public? What's the most expensive piece of clothing you've ever bought? You know, maybe the only other thing that I like as much as music is food. And food is a topic that many people all over the world discuss and like discussing. And they like eating it too. That's what I do. But if you need to start a conversation about food or about eating food or about restaurants, here's some examples. Do you like eating at buffets? That's right, we pronounce this word buffet in English. And in different places it has a different meaning, but in English it's usually a place where you pay one price to go in the door and then you can eat all the food that you want. What food do you hate? What's your favorite dish? What food are you trying to cut down on? What would the last meal of your life be, and who would you share it with? Wow, that's a big question, right? Do you enjoy going grocery shopping? Grocery shopping is when we go to the grocery store or the supermarket and we buy food. Sometimes we call it food shopping, and sometimes we call it grocery shopping. Do you think the government regulates food enough? Okay, I don't know if this situation is about you, but for me, a lot of people want to speak to me about education and about learning, especially learning English. And there are some special phrases that we can use to start a conversation about education. Is it better to go to a private school or a public school? Are standardized tests accurate? Is offline education more effective than online education? That's a big question too. Is teaching a skill that can be taught, or is it a natural ability? What do you think about homeschooling? How has education changed your life? Do you think that your country has a good education system? All right, another really important situation is birthday parties. When you go to a birthday party, usually you meet people who are acquaintances or friends of the birthday boy or girl, and you need to be able to start a conversation and speak about some topics that you might have in common. Here's how I like to do that. How do you know the birthday boy? When is your birthday? Did you try the birthday cake? It's so rich. When we're talking about food, especially about chocolate, the word rich means that it has a very strong taste. Usually it's a bitter taste. Sometimes people use this about sweet tastes also. All right, the next situation that I'm going to describe to you, you're probably familiar with, because if you've seen any of my videos on any of my channels or websites, then you know that something that's really near and dear to my heart is goals and goal setting. I love talking about goals, I love thinking about goals, and I love planning them and then executing them. So really what you need to be able to do is start a conversation with someone about their goals. And this usually leads to a very interesting discussion, in my opinion. So here's how I like to start that. Do you have a list of goals that you're working on right now? What do you want to accomplish in the next 2 years? How have your goals changed in the last year? What do you hope to have achieved by the time you retire? Do you usually achieve the goals that you set? What are some goals that you've already achieved? Okay, maybe you are a business person and you go to conferences or work meetings and you need to be able to discuss topics there. So it's really important that you can start a conversation and you can reach the result that you're trying to reach for your business purposes, right? You're there for a reason. So how can we be very direct but very polite at the same time? Here's some ways that I like to strike up work conversations. In a more professional setting, we might say something like, "We haven't been introduced yet. I'm Khris." Or if we're at a conference, we might say, "Hey, what did you think of the second speaker? I thought he was great." Or we might say, "I really enjoyed that workshop. What did you think?" One of the best times of the year is when we have holidays. And there are special ways that we might start a conversation about holidays, even if we don't know very much about a holiday and it's not a holiday that we ourselves celebrate. So it's a cultural topic that we should know how to speak about. What's the biggest holiday that you celebrate? Do you wish there were more holidays or fewer holidays? If you could get rid of one holiday, which holiday would that be? What types of food are traditionally served during big holidays? If you could create a new holiday, what would it be in honor of? What would you celebrate? Another very cultural topic to speak about is books. You can start a conversation about your favorite books or about different genres of books, and you can understand if the person who you're speaking with is interested in that or not. So here's how I like to talk about books. What was the last book you read? Do you prefer physical books? Do you prefer physical books or ebooks? What's the longest book you've ever read? What's your favorite book? What was the last book you read? Do you prefer physical books or ebooks? What's the longest book you've ever read? What's your favorite book? Which genres of books do you enjoy reading? Do you go to the library? Which books have influenced you the most? Okay, the next topic, maybe you don't speak about so much in your language, but English speakers love to talk about it. We love to talk about the weather and seasons. We might say, "Wow, this is such a hot summer." And we might say, "Oh, it's such a cold winter." And there are different ways that we might start a conversation using these very simple topics. In fact, these topics can be used to start a bigger conversation. They're very light, and they're something that we might call small talk. Unimportant things just to get the conversation started. What's your favorite season? What do you like doing in the spring? Do you prefer summer or winter sports? Is there a certain period of the year when you usually take your holidays? Do you usually take vacations during a certain period of the year? What's the most refreshing thing for you to do on a summer? What's the most refreshing thing for you to do on a hot summer day? Is it better to live in a place where there are 4 seasons or where one season takes up most of the year? And now I want to show you just a few more questions that you might be able to use to start a conversation. Are you working on anything interesting at the moment? What are your plans this weekend? Have you done anything unusual recently? How did you get started in your career? What's the strangest place you've ever visited? What has been the best part of your day so far today? What's the funniest video you've seen recently? Are you a dog person or a cat person? What's your favorite place in the world? What's your dream job? What's the most beautiful place you've ever been? If your mind were an island, what would it look like? If you could create a new flavor of ice cream, which one would you create? If you were a king or a queen, what would your throne look like? What would you do if you were invisible? If you could time travel, which time period would you visit? What is your guilty pleasure? A guilty pleasure is something that you like, but you don't want other people to know that you like it. How is success measured? What's something that really annoys you, but doesn't bother most other people? How much time do you spend on the internet? When do you usually go to sleep? What's the strangest dream you've ever had? If you had intro music, which song would it be? Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope that this video helped you understand how you can start a conversation with someone in English in the future. Don't forget that if you want to have conversation practice 24/7, unlimited lessons with unlimited speaking partners, then come over to our website and join our English Everyday program. Thanks for watching. Make sure you press like, press subscribe, and leave a comment down below to let me know that you like this style of video. I will see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Hey everybody, Khris Amerikos here and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to tell you how you can express your opinion in many different ways. When you want to tell someone what you think, it's important that you can say your ideas very clearly. We want to communicate our ideas and communicate what we think to other people, and we want them to understand us correctly. And that's why it's important to know lots of different phrases that we can say so the person is ready to hear our opinion and to hear what we think. So the phrases that I'm going to teach you in this video today will help you state what you think, to state your opinion or to express your opinion. So let's get started. Of course, the first phrase that I think everybody knows is, well, I just said it, I think, right? When we want to state our opinion or express our opinion, we can say, I think, and then we can say a phrase. We can say what we think. So this is the easiest way, and most people already know this, but there are many other ways that we can do this too. For example, we can say, if you ask me. And this means that if you want my opinion, I will tell you it, right? So we could say, if you ask me, I think pizza is the best food in the world. Maybe you agree with me or maybe you don't. And if you want my opinion, here it is. If you ask me, I think pizza is the best food in the world. Okay, our next phrase is, as far as I can tell. And this means what I understand or what I can see is this, is something, right? So we might say, is John coming to the party? Well, he's 30 minutes late, so as far as I can tell, he's not coming to the party. Another phrase that sounds very similar is, as far as I'm concerned. And this is more about my personal opinion that maybe I think something very strongly about. So maybe you say, Khris, is Halloween a real holiday? And I'll tell you, as far as I'm concerned, Halloween is not a real holiday. And this means my personal opinion about this really is that it's not a real holiday. I mean, come on. You dress up like a monster and ask for candy? That's not a real holiday. Another easy phrase that we can use is we can say, I feel like, or I feel that. Like if someone says, Khris, is English important? Should people learn English? Then I can say, I feel like English is an important language to learn. Or I feel that people should learn English. Yeah, that's my opinion. Okay, the next one is really easy too. It's just one word, honestly. And sometimes we will start speaking and say, honestly, and you should always use this rising intonation, right? We start low and then we go high. Honestly, and then we continue the sentence. So we might say something like, honestly, I think that the United States isn't the best country in the world. And you might hear somebody say, honestly, I think pizza is better than sushi. And usually after we say honestly, we also say I think, but we don't have to. We could say honestly, pizza is better than sushi. And the person will understand that this is my honest opinion. These are my honest ideas, my honest thoughts. I'm not lying. Another easy one that we can use is personally. And again, after personally, we usually say I think. So we might say personally, I think sushi is better than pizza. And this is my personal opinion. Just me, just what I think. Another similar phrase that we might use is, it's my belief that, and this one is similar to just saying, I believe. So for example, we could say, it's my belief that anyone can learn to speak English. And this means it's just what I believe. The next phrase is very easy because it's very short, and we can just say, to me, and then continue with the phrase. So somebody might say, no, Chris, you're wrong. Halloween is a real holiday. And I say, well, to me, it's not a real holiday. And this means you can think what you want, but this is what I think, right? This is how it looks to me. This is what I believe about this. Okay, the next phrase I want to teach you is using a verb that a lot of people never learn because they don't see it in books and textbooks, they don't hear it in conversations, and we don't usually use it in a classroom. It's the verb to reckon, and it means something like to think. So we can say, I reckon, or I reckon that, and both of these phrases will mean something like I think. So we could say, I reckon some people believe that Halloween is a real holiday. And this means that I guess, I think, okay, right? Some people think this. And so we can use I reckon, especially when we want to talk about an idea that maybe isn't popular, or maybe we don't agree with this idea, but I guess that works. I guess that's true. So it's something like I guess, or I think, but maybe I don't agree. I reckon this is a new word for you. Okay, another fun phrase that we can use to express our opinion is the phrase, I can't lie. And this might sound funny to some people because, sure, everybody can lie, right? Any person in the world can lie. And a lot of times when we talk about our opinion, we say something like, to tell you the truth, right? So we talk about truth and lies. And this phrase, I can't lie, it just means I'm going to tell you my honest opinion. So I can't lie, I think pizza is the best food in the world. Or I can't lie, pizza is better than sushi. Right? And this tells you that this is my honest opinion. Another phrase like this that we might say that's connected to lies and truth is the phrase, in all honesty. In all honesty, pizza's better than sushi. Come on, agree with me. Okay, enough with that example, right? In all honesty, people should learn English because it helps them speak with more people in the world. Right? So I can tell you that this is my honest opinion, and I think that this is objective. Another similar phrase is when we say, from my point of view. And this phrase lets us tell a person that it's okay if they don't agree with us. It's okay if we have different opinions, right? So I understand that you like sushi, but from my point of view, pizza's the best and nothing can be better. I lied, right? I said I was not going to use that example anymore, but hey, I love pizza. Okay, the next one, in my opinion. And sometimes you'll see people on the internet actually abbreviate this. They'll say, in my humble opinion, and they'll write IMHO. So if you see someone write IMHO, and you're wondering, what does that mean? It means, in my humble opinion. So, in my humble opinion, or in my opinion, it's similar to the last phrase that we talked about because it tells the person that I have my opinion and it's okay if you don't agree, right? This is my opinion and you can have your opinion. So we might say, in my opinion, French is also a very important language to learn. Okay, our next phrase is very similar. It shows the person that we both have different opinions and that's okay. And we can say, the way I see it is, or just the way I see it. Like, the way I see it, Spanish is also a very important language to learn. And this tells the person that maybe you see it differently. Maybe you have a different opinion, but this is how I see it. All right, our next phrase is, it seems to me that, And here we show the person we're speaking with that maybe this is not true, right? This is my opinion and maybe it's not true. Maybe you can show me that this is not right, but this is what I think now. So we could say, it seems to me that most Westerners do not want to study Chinese, right? And I'm sure in the comments you can write and say, Khris, you're not right. Lots of Westerners, Europeans, Canadians, Americans study Chinese. So if you want to write, you can. But it seems to me that not many people study Chinese in the West. All right, our next phrase is, I believe. Or we can also say, I honestly believe. And when we add in honestly, it shows more emotion. So we could say that I honestly believe that more Westerners should study Chinese because it's going to be more important in the next few years and decades. In fact, that brings us to our next phrase, which is, I would say that, for example, I would say that Chinese is already a very important language in the world, and more non-Chinese people need to learn Chinese. I would say that. And even though we use the word would here, it doesn't mean that this is some kind of conditional statement. It just means that if you asked me now, I would say this now. And I already said it. All right, we're down to our last phrase, the last phrase that we use to clearly communicate our opinions, our thoughts, and our ideas, to express what we're thinking. And this phrase is, I consider it to be. It means that this is my perspective about this. This is my opinion about this, right? So as an example, I can tell you this. I consider it to be an honor to teach you English. Yeah, I think it's an honor. I think it's something special that I get to do, that I can teach you English. So thank you so much for watching this video, for learning some new phrases about how to express yourself. Because when you can express yourself clearly and people can understand you, then we'll have more effective communication and we'll have less problems in the world. So if you like this video, make sure you press like, press subscribe, and leave a comment down below. And I hope to see you in our next video. Hey everybody, Khris Amerikos here, and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to tell you how to give advice in English. And really, we can start by talking about words that help us give advice. Like the word suggest. To suggest something, or maybe to suggest something to someone. And when we suggest or make a suggestion, this means that we tell someone what we think is right or what we think is good to do. So maybe your friend says, where should we eat dinner tonight? And you say, I suggest the Chinese restaurant across the street, right? I suggest it. And this is your advice. You think that this place is good. This is a good answer. This is a good option for where you'll eat dinner tonight. Now, when you suggest something, it doesn't mean that you absolutely love that place. It just means that this is your advice for this situation. Now, another thing that you could say is you could say, I recommend. Right? If you say, I recommend this place, then this does mean that I think it's great and, I definitely want to go there, right? I recommend it. It means that I personally think that it's very, very good overall, not only for this situation, but in general, it's a great place. I recommend it. And to recommend means to tell someone else about it, right? That's what recommend really means. For example, you could recommend the restaurant to your friends. So to recommend means that it's good enough for you to tell other people about it. And suggest just means that we think it's good for this situation. We think it's good as an answer or a solution to the problem or question that we have right now. So suggest and recommend are two ways that we can give advice. We can also give advice to someone by saying should. And the word should is different than the word must. It's different than the word have to, right? Or two words, have to. But should also shows that we're giving advice. It also tells us that we think something is good. We think this is the right answer, right? Like, for example, your friend says, where are we going to eat tonight? And you say, if you like Chinese restaurants, if you like Chinese food, you should go to the Chinese restaurant across the street, right? You should. I think it's good for you to do this, right? And when we say shouldn't, it means that we think something is bad or that that we do not want them to do it, right? Like, you shouldn't smoke. This doesn't mean that it's a rule. It just means that I think it's bad. I think it's not good to do it, right? So should is also a word that we can use to give advice. And it doesn't mean that it's a rule or a law. If it's a rule or a law, we should say must or have to. But if it's just advice, if we're just telling them what we think is good, we should say should. Now, there are some other phrases that we can use to give advice as well. For example, we can say, why don't you? Like your friend says, where should we eat tonight? And you say, why don't you go to the Chinese restaurant across the street? Why don't you? And this means you should try it, right? It means you can do this. Why don't you do this? It's a suggestion. It's another way that we can give advice. Another good phrase that we might use is, if I were you. If I were you. For example, where should we go to eat? If I were you, I would go to the Chinese restaurant. So this is a way to say that, it's not possible for me to be you, but in this situation, if I were you, then I would do this. All right? And yes, it sounds strange, right? If I were. Usually we say I was. So I were, it sounds like a mistake, right? But this is a very special situation in English. We don't need to talk about it a lot because we don't see it a lot. But just remember that when we say this special phrase, if I were you, that we always say were. If I were you, I would learn more English grammar if you want more of an answer to that question. Great. So the last phrase that we're going to talk about today is you had better. You had better. And our example about the restaurant, it doesn't really work here because you had better, it means if you do not do the thing that I tell you, then something bad will happen. So it's a kind of advice, but also it can be like a threat. You're telling somebody if they don't do it, something bad will happen, and then they need to think, oh, does that mean that this person will do something bad or just something bad will happen in the future, right? We don't know. For example, let me give you an example, right? I can say, you had better pay for your food at the restaurant, right? If you don't pay for your food at the restaurant, something bad will happen. The police will find you. The people in the restaurant will, I don't know how they'll get this money from you, but they will, right? So you had better pay for your food at the restaurant. You had better do it. And this phrase, had better, you had better do it, this means that if you do not do this, something bad will happen. So this is another way that we can give advice. And so let's go back through all of the different ways that we talked about today in this video. We talked about had better, or you had better, right? We talked about if I were you. We talked about why don't you? We talked about you should. We talked about we talked about I recommend. And we also talked about I suggest, right? And I recommend and I suggest, we use those examples about suggesting the Chinese restaurant or recommending the Chinese restaurant, but sometimes after recommend and suggest, we can also use a verb. And when we do, it has to be a gerund. It has to have the ing ending. So for example, I suggest going to the Chinese restaurant, or I recommend going to the Chinese restaurant. So because after recommend and after suggest we have a verb, we have to use ing, going, right? We cannot say I suggest to go. We should say I suggest going. All right, well, I think that's enough information for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then go ahead and press like, press subscribe, and write a comment down below. If you want to learn how to speak better English as fast as possible, as quickly as possible, I will tell you how you can do that the fastest way in my free seminar, and there's also a link for my free seminar under this video. Hey everybody, Khris Amerikos here, and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to teach you phrases that you can say when you want someone to repeat themselves. When you want someone to repeat themselves. When you want someone to... Okay, I think you understand. So if you don't understand what somebody says, you can say these phrases and ask them to say it again. Let's start with some easy ones. The first one is, sorry? And you should definitely move your eyebrow up like this when you say, sorry? Right? If you can do that, then go ahead and try to do that. Just look in the mirror and say it to yourself. Sorry? Sorry? And the intonation here is really important because we want to make it like a question. We want to use question intonation. And question intonation rises. So we say, sorry? Sorry? And this means that we didn't hear the person or we didn't understand them. And the other person should repeat back to us. Now, sometimes we use sorry together with other phrases, and I'll give you some examples of that right now. The next phrase that we might use is come again. Now, this one is kind of funny to say, and not everybody says it, but some people do. And they might hear you talking and you say something that they don't understand, they look at you and they say, come again? It means say it again, please. Now, you probably know the next phrase. It's just one word. We can just say, what? But some people think that it sounds kind of rude. Like you tell me, Khris, I love your videos. And I say, what? It sounds kind of like, I don't believe you, or something like this, right? So it's not the most polite way to tell someone that you don't understand. Another phrase that we might use is, excuse me? Excuse me? This one is very similar to sorry, and it tells the person that maybe I didn't hear you or maybe I didn't understand you, but the phrase excuse me might also mean that I think you said something terrible, right? Like, Khris, I hate your videos, and I say, excuse me? Now, with the intonation, we should be able to understand if the person is just telling us that they didn't hear us or didn't understand what we said, or if the person is offended by what we said. And if they're offended, they might say, excuse me, right? You'll be able to hear it from the intonation. But if I didn't understand the person, I'll just say, excuse me? With just simple question intonation, with the rising intonation at the end of the phrase. Now, let's look at some longer phrases, but phrases that maybe are a little more polite and that definitely tell a person that we just didn't hear them or we didn't understand them. The first one is, what was that? And we can replace the word that with other words or a longer phrase, like, what was it that you just said? Or what was the last word that you said? For example. And we can tell them exactly what we didn't hear clearly or what we didn't understand. Another phrase that is similar to this is, what did you say? What did you say? And again, this phrase could sound like, I didn't hear you or I didn't understand you, but also it could sound like I am offended. Like you said, Khris, your videos are terrible. And I say, what did you say? Right? Like are these words serious? Because this is rude. So sometimes it has this meaning. We might also add something to this phrase, like, what did you just say? And this tells us that we're talking about the last thing that you said, or something that you said very recently. Another one that we use a lot is, could you repeat that? And again, we can change the word that and use other words. Like we could say, could you repeat the last word that you just said? Now, you probably know if you've watched any of my other videos that using the word could is very polite. So another phrase that we can say is, could you say that again? This one is very clear and very simple, right? And we can change the word that. We can say, could you say the last word again? Or could you say that sentence again? Or could you say the last thing that you said again? Okay, the next phrase that I'm going to teach you is kind of a funny phrase, at least I think it's funny, but I hear people use it quite often. And this phrase is, I beg your pardon? I beg your pardon? And again, this means, excuse me, or sorry, or I didn't hear you, I didn't understand you, and I want you to repeat. But also this phrase might mean that I'm offended, that I think you said something rude. It has both of these meanings. And what does it really mean, beg your pardon? Well, a pardon is when we forgive someone. Like they say, sorry, and you say, okay, I accept your apology, right? This is to pardon someone. They did something bad and you say, it's okay now. And we say, I beg your pardon. Beg means to ask for something very, very strongly. Please, 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 please. So it means, please, please accept my apology. I'm very sorry. That's what it means. Okay, now let's talk about phrases that we use to tell someone that we didn't hear them or we didn't understand them, but we want them to know that it's our fault. Because sometimes when we repeat again and again, and we tell a person, sorry, excuse me, what did you say? Could you say that again? Maybe they feel like they are not clear, right? And sometimes that's true. But if we want to tell them specifically that we didn't understand it, we didn't hear them, then we should say something else. And we can say, for example, I didn't catch that. I didn't catch what you said. Could you say it again? And these phrases where we tell the person that it's our fault, we usually combine them with the other phrases that we've already learned today. So we might say, sorry, I didn't catch that. Or sorry, I didn't catch what you said. This means I didn't hear what you said, or I didn't understand what you said. We might also say, I didn't get that, or I didn't get what you said. Could you say it again? And another one is, I didn't hear you, or I didn't hear that, or I didn't hear what you said. We can also very simply just say, I don't understand what you said. Could you say it again? Or, sorry, I don't understand what you just said. Another phrase like this is when we say, I don't follow. I don't follow what you just said. And when we say follow, it means that we don't understand or we didn't hear what they said. Okay, the last phrase that I'm going to teach you in this video today is, I'm lost. Now, usually we say I'm lost when we're walking in a city and we don't know where we are, or we don't know where we're going. And we find a person, oh, help me, where's the bank? I'm lost. But we can also say I'm lost when we don't understand what a person is talking about, right? So maybe I tell you, oh, there's going to be a new video on Friday and then a new video on Monday, but not on Monday, only on Thursday. But so are you confused? I'm confused. I confused myself. So in this situation, you can say, Chris, sorry, but I'm lost. Could you say that again? Because I'm completely lost. And this means I don't understand what's happening. So I hope this video helped you understand different ways that you can ask someone to repeat information and ways that you can tell them that you didn't understand something. If you like this video, make sure you press like, press subscribe, Click on that bell button so you get a notification when new videos come out, and leave a comment down below telling me why you liked it or why you didn't. Hey guys, you're watching another video with Khris Amerikos, and today's topic is active listening. That's right, active listening. Now you might be asking yourself, what is active listening? You just listen, right? It can't really be active or passive. Or maybe all listening is passive. No. Today we're going to talk about active listening. Let me explain what that is. Active listening is basically when someone else is speaking and you give them signals that you understand, or you don't understand, or you need more information, or something else. So when another person is speaking, you can give them signals, and this is called active listening. It means you don't just sit there and be quiet the whole time, you participate, even when you're not speaking. Now, in English, as well as in other languages, this is very, very important. And it's also a topic that English learners get confused about very often, because they don't understand that a lot of the sounds and signals that people are sending to them are just active listening signals, and they don't really mean something in the conversation. The best example of this is when someone asks, "Hey, where are you from?" and you say, "I'm from Russia," and they say, "Really?" This doesn't mean that they don't believe you or they didn't hear you the first time. It just means they're saying, "Okay, cool, I'm listening, continue." That's right, this is called active listening. Active listening is basically feedback that we give to a speaker. So someone is speaking and we say, "Oh, really? Oh, wow." And other phrases like this. And now the speaker understands he should continue because I heard him. Now, active listening is not only about words and sounds, it's also about body language. So let's separate all of the things that we're going to talk about into two categories. We're going to say that there's verbal behavior and there's nonverbal behavior. So verbal behavior would be something like sounds and words that we say to show somebody something, to send a signal. And then nonverbal behavior would be more like body language. Most people in a conversation will use a mix of nonverbal and verbal behavior to communicate different signals and different ideas. Because even if you haven't thought about it before, active listening is also a type of communication. Now, let's look at some best practices for active listening in English. The first thing we need to talk about is physical attention. First of all, when we're speaking to a person, we want to face them directly. This lets the person know that we're listening to what's coming out of their mouth. Very often, people will look at your eyes or your mouth while you're speaking, and this is to show that they see you creating or producing the language. It really helps the speaker know this person is listening. Another aspect of physical attention is noticing the speaker's body language. So if it looks like the speaker is sitting very uncomfortably, we might want to ask, "Are you uncomfortable? Do you want to move?" And then let them continue speaking. This will not sound like we're interrupting them. It will just sound like we're checking if everything's okay because we are actively listening and we notice what they're saying and how they express themselves. If we don't notice or we don't care, then the person might think that we are not listening or that we're not paying attention, which is really the same thing. And then if we see that the speaker's body language is okay, then maybe we want to copy the speaker's body language to show them that we are on the same level as them, or that we are thinking about the same topic that they're speaking about. So for example, if the speaker is sitting down, it's probably a good idea for us to sit down too. If we stand and we look down at the speaker while he's sitting, then this might show that we're not really listening to him, or we feel like we're on a different level. Maybe we feel like what he's saying isn't as important as what we're saying, because we're up here and he's down here. And another aspect of physical attention is not doing other things while the person is speaking. You probably have that friend who pulls out his phone and every time someone's talking to him, he just stares at his phone. And someone's talking and he just stares at his phone. And maybe he types a couple messages on his phone while you're speaking to him. It feels really disrespectful, right? It seems like he's not giving you his full attention. And that's what we want to avoid. The second best practice when we talk about active listening is paraphrasing or restating. First of all, what is paraphrasing and what is restating? Well, restating, it's easy to understand. It's just when you say the thing that they said back to them. So they say, "Oh, it's cold today, isn't it?" And you say, "Oh, is it cold?" So you're saying the thing that they said back to them. And paraphrasing means that we just change some of the words, but we say the same thing back to them again. So if someone says, "It's cold today," you might say, "Yeah, it's not warm." So why do we say this, or why do we do this? It's clear that if he says it's cold and I say it's not warm, it's the same thing, right? Well, we do this and say this to show the other person that we are listening. We also do this to show the person that we understand. Because if he tells me, "It's cold today," and I say, "Your car is fast," then of course he will understand that I didn't listen to him, or he'll think that I didn't understand what he said. Another reason that we might restate something to someone is to check if we understood them correctly. So for example, if someone says, "I'm going to be home late tonight," you might say, "So you're going to be home after 8 o'clock tonight, right?" So here I didn't use the word late, I used a time, and I'm trying to get more specific information to make sure that I interpreted what he said correctly. A lot of times people say something and they have one idea in their mind and you have a different idea in yours. By restating or paraphrasing, you can avoid this problem, because this way you're restating it and checking if it's true. The third best practice for active listening is reflecting. You might know what a reflection is. Reflection is what you see when you look in the mirror, or maybe when you look in water. Why is it good to reflect when you're listening to someone? Because it will show them that you understand what they're feeling. You are compassionate. People might say words or sounds to reflect, like, "Aww, that's so sad," or many other things like this. Another reason that we might reflect on what someone tells us is to help the speaker evaluate his or her feelings. Because when another person says words about emotions or about situations that make us feel emotional, sometimes we react differently. So if I explain the situation, I might think it's the end of the world, it's a really big deal. But when I hear the same words and the same explanation from another person, a person who's reflecting on what I just said, then it might sound like it's very silly to me. And the fourth best practice for active listening in English is clarifying. This means to make something clearer. And clarifying helps to clear up what was already said. My example about being home late or being home at 8 o'clock, this is a good example of clarifying. So being late could mean a lot of different things, but being home at 8 o'clock is very specific. We might also clarify to get more information or more detailed information. And sometimes we clarify to help another person see a different point of view. So for example, if the person said, "I'm going to be home late tonight," and I say, "Are you going to be home by 8 o'clock? Because if you're not, you'll miss dinner." So this might help a person clear up this idea in his or her mind. First of all, he thought that he was going to be late, but now, if he's going to miss dinner, he might need to replan how late he's going to be. And a great strategy for clarifying is to ask open-ended questions. So in my example, I asked a yes or no question. Are you going to be home by 8 o'clock? There are two answers, yes or no, but an open-ended question has many more answers. So for example, I'm going to be home late tonight. How late are you going to be? This will tell the other person that I need some more information. I need you to clarify. And of course, let's not forget that our tone of voice can really help communicate to someone that we are listening to them and we're paying attention. So to review everything, active listening is really about understanding, about clarifying, and about showing that we are paying attention. Now let's look at some common active listening sounds or phrases that we might hear. The first one I already told you about is, "Really? I just came back from vacation last month." "Really? How was it?" "I went to the casino and I lost a lot of money." "Aw, really?" So do you hear the two different tones of voice? One was excited and one was sad. Probably the most commonly used sound in English for active listening is uh-huh, uh-huh, which basically means something like yes, yes, continue, I heard you, I understand, go on, keep speaking. If you listen to different native speakers from different places, they might say different phrases like this. But it's important to understand that these are not real questions. When someone says, "Really?" it doesn't mean that he doesn't believe you. It means that he understands you and wants you to continue speaking. So guys, I hope from this point forward, when you're listening to English people speaking to you, you will use active listening techniques. You don't need to say it all the time. You just need to say it sometimes so the person understands that you're still there. This is especially important when we talk to someone on the phone or on Skype and we don't see them. So we can't see their body language. And we need these sounds or short words to tell them, I heard you. Go on. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Don't forget to press like, press subscribe, and leave a comment down below. And if you want to speak more like a native speaker, make sure you check out my webinar, English Hacks. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.